We said we were going to have more consistency, and here we are.
Well, we said we were going to have more episodes. What I told everybody this season was that we will do the podcast will happen again at some point. I don't know when. Some people are like, yeah, we'll see if that ever happens.
Yeah, like, sure, Hayden.
I didn't promise consistency. I just said there will at least be another podcast at some point.
Well, last episode, maybe I didn't promise it, but I did say the goal is for us to be more consistent. So I think I'm just giving us a little back tap off the start.
Credit.
Here.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. This is episode number 30. I know, right?
Yep.
Yeah, this is number 30.
Took us 3 years. Well, 2 years. 2 years, but we got to 30.
But we got to 30. Pretty good.
And we got a good one today.
Can't complain.
We got a really good one today. This one's your baby.
This one's why?
Because you're the most educated on it. I just learned about a little bit of the science of it and other people's experience.
I think you're the most educated on it between the two of us.
Well, I guess only because I have went under the knife for this. But
right. Today we're going to be talking about butterflies and hip health, based on something that I don't even know where to start with this. Something that we talked about. So the way that we were going to think about talking about this was the NHL.com posted an article by Kevin Woodley about how NHL teams, we talked a little bit about this last week, about how NHL teams are tracking the number of butterflies a goalie is doing over the course of games and practices to try to save their hips from, I guess, doing too many of them and wearing their hips down over the course of a season and over the course of years is the easiest way to put it.
Yeah. They are referring it as the drop rate, or what was the other one? Down count.
Yeah, I guess
like down
I guess
count.
what NHL teams are calling it is the drop rate or down count, which is how many butterflies a goaltender is doing over the course of games and practices.
So I wonder, I don't know if it went into this on the article, but have they come up with any sort of formula, or is it just too new to really know what the secret number is?
This just came out in late November of 2025. So this is the first time that I've seen anybody actually write about it or study this.
Okay. I think off the start there's a couple I think we start with the science of this a little bit based off of what Matt Murray said.
I think we should start with the science. I say it started with this article, but I want to go back before this article to last summer and 2 summers ago, because this really started with Coach Will.
Yes.
Where he talked about, he was the first one, Coach Will, who was the strength and conditioning coach at our camps, and the one that we've worked with for the last couple of years. He worked with us with the Bulls professionally. But he was the one that first came up with thinking about tracking how many times we go into the butterfly to help save our hips and our knees.
Yeah, he even touched on potentially, well, he wanted it, but he knew that just hockey culture and how difficult it would be to do this, but for the goalies to actually take some time off the ice during a practice week.
Yeah. So,
which we never ended up doing, but I'm not saying it's not something that should be done.
Right. We never ended up doing that, but we'll address, I guess towards the end of the episode, we'll address some of the solutions that we would have for this that we've kind of been thinking about and talking about.
Yeah. Okay, can you scroll to where the science was? Because I've got some notes here, but I'll butcher it. So what is...
the science about why the butterfly isn't good for you?
Yeah, what's happening to your body when you're going in the butterfly?
So I guess I'm not a doctor or a scientist or a rocket scientist.
No shit.
We have a very simple job. We keep a black disc from going across a line.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I can think. But the basic science behind it, apparently, put our thinking caps on here, is that when you drop into a butterfly, your femur internally rotates in your hip joint and then basically slams up into your hip capsule.
Yeah, I've got the word pelvis written down here. Is your hip capsule a part of your pelvis?
Yeah, I think it'd be included. Again, I'm not I'm not also an anatomy major, but yes, I'd say it's included in your pelvis. So where your big leg bone, your femur, goes into your hip when you drop into the butterfly, it's kind of slamming the head of that bone into your hip joint into your hip capsule, from what I understand.
And on top of that, which then causes bone growths.
Yeah, so this is from Matt Murray in this article by NHL, and I can put the article in the description. But according to Matt Murray with this, your bone thinks it's like a microfracture, and obviously when you fracture a bone, it thickens when it heals. It becomes thicker the next time. So I guess over the course of time, the bone thickens, and that's where you get what they call an impingement, which is like a little spur that forms on the head of that femur, and that ends up tearing your labrum when you move it around your hip joint all the time. It ends up tearing what's called your labrum, which is the, I guess, kind of like part of your hip that keeps your hip bone in place.
Yeah, if it
soft tissue that keeps your hip bone in place, and your shoulders have them too.
If it makes you feel any better about the science that you're spitting out right now, this is pretty much exactly what was explained to me by professionals when I had my hip issue. So I think we're spot on here. I think Matt Murray's spot on here.
Yeah.
So the way it was explained to me was over time I had a growth develop on my femur that was catching and tearing up a bunch of stuff. My labrum was obviously the biggest part of it. And when they went in for surgery, the biggest part of the surgery, aside from obviously repairing the labrum, was getting rid of that bone growth, so that obviously it wasn't continuing to rub on that, whatever it was tearing up. Like, it was a disaster. I got pictures of my hip.
Yeah.
The before and after pictures are wild.
Have you seen, so I had my shoulder labrum repaired. You've had your hip labrum repaired. Have you seen what they do when they repair a labrum?
Are you talking about it looks like they're like breaking the guy's leg or arm?
No. Well, no, I don't know, not that. But like,
have you seen those?
I've seen, yeah. Where they have like a sledgehammer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I refuse to watch those videos because I don't want to. I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy because I know I'll be under the sheet for that at some point. But they it's cool. They like the arthroscopic view, which I guess is the little camera they send in there.
Mm-hmm.
They your labrum's like kind of a rope, and it's like frayed, and that's where the bone is sliding out of the joint. They take a little rope and tied that frayed rope back together. So now it's like one rope again, and then they anchor it into your bone. So now you have a new labrum.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm sure I've looked at it.
That's how the shoulder works. I got to feel like hip is the same because they're both ball and socket joints.
Yeah, I don't know. See, it's weird for me because I had a labrum tear in my shoulder, and 11 years ago, and then I had that bicep tear right after I retired a year ago, and so both were arthroscopic. Say that right? Arthroscopic surgeries.
It's a big word for us.
My shoulder and arm after both of those surgeries to this day caused me issues every single day of my life. My hip after my surgery.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I have the best hip. We've often joked about it. I have the best, newest hip in the league.
Yeah.
I think
you have the best hip around.
And this is kind of just a side note, kind of irrelevant to all this, but I will say I think the reason for that is you're always moving your hip. Whereas with my shoulder, if I'm not doing my exercises and stuff like that, it just gets super tight.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
And then I also played goalie. So that really loosens up your hip to a certain degree for the year after my hip surgery.
Right.
Anyways, I just thought I just think it's interesting because my shoulder's mangled. I don't know I got issues.
But you might have had other, don't you have, you maybe had arthritis in there or something? Or?
Yeah, it was a bunch of, I think there was arthritis caused by not rehabbing properly after the labrum tear.
Right.
The bicep tore off and then blah, blah, blah. But anyways, we're talking about hips. So.
Well, apparently if you don't get your labrums fixed, it causes arthritis down the road. So anyways.
That makes sense. Which arthritis is, correct me if I'm wrong, arthritis is the bone growth, is it not?
No, that's an impingement, I think.
We might have to look at it.
I thought arthritis is inflamed joints.
Yeah, but I've looked at, doctors have showed me pictures of my shoulder where there was a growth coming off. Yeah. That's arthritis. So I don't know.
I think it's different than a bone spur, but let's see. Well, actually, that might be something even different. I don't know.
Neither do I.
Either way. Yeah, the only reason I'm saying all this or I know any of this is because I've been through all of it with getting my body put back together. But
right.
Anyways, so apparently obviously going down into the butterfly, slamming your knees when your hips are internally rotated and slamming that femur head up into your hip capsule is not good for it.
Mm-hmm.
What they say in this article is that it's about every time you go in the butterfly, it's about double your body weight onto your hip joint when you are going into the butterfly. So a 200-pound goalie, when they every time they go into the butterfly, they put a 400-pound internally rotated load on their hip joint.
Is that just because the distance from like you to the ground?
I think so.
Your knees
Yeah.
to the ground, or is it
Well,
because
and you're
of the,
slamming down as hard as you can?
or is it because it's internally rotated?
Well, the pure force is just from slamming down into your butterfly as hard as you can.
Okay.
The fact that you're doing it on an internally rotated joint isn't good.
Right.
Is what causes problems. So the other thing about this is they think Matt Murray says who's had hip surgery and he's kind of had to come back from that. He thinks that the majority of his bone growth that causes these hip, I guess what would be called a hip impingement and labrum tear, happened between the ages of 12 to 16. Because he would be on the ice every day at that age.
Sometimes a couple times a day.
And I guess that's when your bones are growing a lot and way easier affected by this thing. Apparently.
It's really hard not to compare this to a pitch count,
Yeah, and they do eventually in this article. That's what they talk about. But I had this conversation with some of our medical team about your hip. I was like, so is the impingement something that he's born with? Your hip is just genetically designed this way to have a bone growth? Or is it something that develops? And they said that kind of nowadays no one's really sure. They don't know if it's nature versus nurture.
That's the worst answer ever.
But I mean, it is what it is. That they can't say for sure whether it's caused by internal hip rotation or slamming your knees into the ice, or it's genetic, where like just your hip moving in a certain way develops a bone growth, whereas some people's don't. I'm sure it's a mix of both, and they both have to do with it.
It to me, it's got to be, and the most proof for that is why did I need left hip surgery but not right hip surgery?
Well, then part of it is could be that they talk about in this article as well, that sometimes you use one leg more than the other, so maybe over the course of time you could have overloaded your left hip more.
Okay, I could have, but then my argument to that would be I'm right side dominant. So
right.
Like, more often than not, I'm going to be putting my weight, whether I'm kicking a ball or just putting my general weight on a limb, it's going to be my right side.
Yes, except for that, putting your weight on your right side would be getting up. So like when we first start playing, I would always get up with my left leg because I'm left leg dominant.
Right.
So I'd be more apt to put my right knee down. So my right knee could get overused compared to my left hip.
Yeah, okay. But, I mean, the time that you're putting, like, one leg down before the other is, like, the first 2 months you're playing goalie.
Well, depends.
Come on.
Even now, if I'm going to do a VH, I always put my right knee down. Like, my right knee down is way more comfortable. But my point is, it's all speculation, but if you think about it, and I had this conversation with Coach Will, the butterfly has really only been around for basically the last, 30 years. So people started using it, and then guys like Tim Thomas in 2009 started. That's when I remember he had a notable hip labrum surgery, and then came back and won the Vezina and the Cup the next year. But my point is, we only have a certain amount of time span that we're able to look at for the butterfly so far. It's not like we have 100 years of a golf swing to look at and see how it causes injuries.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking as you're talking, because I'm thinking about who's the first goalie that comes to mind for you when you think of who created the butterfly?
Patty Waugh.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about him. Was he doing the butterfly when he was 10?
Probably not.
Probably not. He probably started doing it when he was
he
18?
was pad stacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was 20.
Like you can look at old film of 1996, which I believe is when him and the Montreal Canadiens and the last team from Canada to win a Stanley Cup played.
Yep.
I could see him. He was super skinny, wearing his brown leather pads.
And the Oilers aren't doing it this year, so.
No, they're not. Not even close.
They had a good year,
Was
though.
he doing the butterfly then, though? in 96? I don't know if he was. I think he was still doing that weird like front shin butterfly.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so even like before then, even when guys did butterflies, it was like with the knee like straight down.
So you didn't have the internal rotation.
So your hip wasn't internal. So like they'd be like on the face of their pads.
Yeah, on the front of your shins instead of the inside of your.
Yeah, like you'd go on the face of your knees and like eat it with the top of your knees.
Yeah.
That's like how you butterfly before you really, when you're first learning how to play goalie.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people do that. So your knees like come forward. So the point is you're not internally rotating to have your pads square a certain way. So even then they didn't do it as often or regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't do it with that internal rotation.
It wasn't the same movement.
It's probably still tough on the knees for sure.
I'd imagine your knees would probably take more of a beating than your hips. I
Yeah,
feel like
100%.
our knees take less of a beating doing it the way we do it now.
Yeah, I think the knees still do take a beating, but probably less. But nowadays, you know, they have like the knee blocks that are made for it, and you wear knee pads under your pads. So hopefully you have a lot of cushion to internally, you know, slam your knees on the ice, which is great. And hopefully that actually helps the hips too.
You know what I was just thinking about too? I literally teach kids that don't slam their knees down to slam their knees down.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to.
Because you're
going to get scored on.
So how do you fix all this?
Right. Well, that's the tough thing. So let's see. Let me see if we miss anything. We talked about the double the body weight. We talked about
2 times your body weight.
2 times your body weight. We talked about it in teenage hips where the bones are still growing.
Oh, how is the NHL tracking this? This is relevant just because it's cool. I think it's cool.
It says that they use
Catapult.
Yeah, wearable technology to track this.
Which obviously we know is unrealistic for every day.
So it's not like a pitch counter in the stands.
Yeah. But still, I think that's cool that we have technology to do that.
It is cool, and it sounds like it's a great investment if you're going to save your goalies, especially in the NHL, if you're going to save your $10 million your goalie thousands of dollars of hip surgery and rehab.
But see, this is a tough thing to get everyone to buy into, because we're talking about potentially like a 12-year-old and his or her parents buying into this now, so that they're not potentially maybe affected by it when they're 25.
Right.
So like for me, 2 different personalities. You know, like you read a lot, you educate yourself, and then you kind of you trust the experts. Whereas like I kind of just at a younger age, just being honest, at a younger age, I wasn't so inclined to like, I wasn't as teachable, you know, I was a little bit more stubborn. I was like, it won't happen to me type of deal.
Right.
This is one of those things that like, I feel like people are going to have to really buy into, and it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time for certain personalities to actually buy into it.
Well,
I wouldn't. When I was 12 years old, if I was listening to this, my personality might be like,
I think if the NHL is doing it, though, your personality would be like, okay, I probably should do it. Right?
Probably. No, I'd find... I'm not trying to be stubborn here, but I'd find a way to not. Like, I'd be like, well, just because it happened to Matt Murray, like, I haven't heard, like, Vasi. It hasn't happened to Vasi. I'll just be Vasi.
Well, apparently Vasi's had double hip surgery to open up his hips.
Maybe that was a bad example.
That's the rumor, right? T-Joe was big on that.
Do you get what I'm saying, though?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, right?
Some
guys have had surgery, some guys haven't.
It's like telling someone to you're basically telling someone to do preventative things so you don't get hurt, which I feel like a lot of people take care of injuries once they actually happen.
Right. But we'll get into this in a little bit, because this will be part of our solution, because I think that there's a whole area in the middle to help with all this.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing that this mentions is that apparently this force, compared to when people are running and the amount of volume they put on their hips running, it's not as bad. But again, you're loading in an internally rotated hip.
Right. It's different.
So and they say the difference is when you're running, you're loading like a flexed leg, but in the butterfly, you're not necessarily. I disagree with this a little bit. I do think the musculature around your hips and groins and core can help with this. Yeah, but
I think this is almost like if you look back at our ancestors, they weren't running around in the RVH. You know, they weren't running around with an internally rotated hip. So
I always say we play a position your body, the human body just wasn't made to play.
No, it would no.
You know, just is what it is. So now that we've kind of gone through the issue and what some NHL teams are thinking about it, I think now we talk about what do we do in response to this. Because part of what they're saying is that in baseball, when there's a pitch count and the pitcher hits their pitch count in like youth baseball, you just take them out.
Mm-hmm.
In hockey, you don't just, it's not like there's 13 and a half minutes left in the third period. And you're like, oh, goalies reached their butterfly count for the week. Other goalies got to go in. That's not how it works.
I don't know baseball, but is the pitch count so that a 15-year-old kid can still throw a baseball when he's 25? Or is a pitch count for a 15-year-old kid so that he can throw more baseballs the next day?
I believe it's saving you from long-term rotator cuff injury while your shoulder's growing. But even in, the major leagues, I think early in the season they have pitch counts. And I think at the World Baseball Classic this September they had pitch counts for the pitchers as well.
Okay.
Because they had to schedule their pitchers around it.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like it makes sense to me why an MLB team would want their all-star pitcher to be able to throw baseballs for the entire season.
You would.
And playoffs, obviously.
But I guess that's why they have a rotation.
Right. But then in the minors, not in the minors, when minor league baseball, like I'm talking when you're a kid, like does the coach really care about that? I'm not saying the coach doesn't care about the kid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, is it all about we have to make sure this kid doesn't throw a certain amount of baseball so that when he's 25 he can throw a baseball? Or is there an advantage to him only throwing a certain amount of balls one day so that the next day or the week after he can throw the same amount?
I think it's the first one. I think it's to protect him.
Okay. Well, but the reason why I bring that up is
I'm not a youth
because,
baseball coach.
Right. So imagine you're a youth hockey coach and you have like one goalie, or even if you have two, like,
yep.
Are they really going to put the goalie on a butterfly count? On a what do we call it? A down count? Drop rate?
In your practice, yes. You're going to structure your practice in a way that's the case, which is part of what we're going to get into.
Okay.
So I guess that's a good segue into this because the Carolina Hurricanes goalie coach, when we're talking about what to do about this now, knowing that if we were going to take this as truth, which I think we should for now because the NHL is finally coming out.
Yeah, I agree.
So it says the goaltending coach for the Carolina Hurricanes, Paul Schoenfelder, Hurricanes had pretty good goaltending so far.
Yeah.
Just ask the Sens.
Busey?
The Flyers. Yeah. Well,
Bussy?
Freddie for playoffs, but yeah, also the bus.
The bus. Is that what they call him?
I don't know. That's what I just call him.
Okay.
Hop on the bus. But anyways, he says that in practice is where they take advantage of it because they usually always have three goalies, and if they know that someone's played a lot recently or they've practiced a lot, they'll just kind of rotate them out just to cut them down, cut the butterflies down.
I mean, Freddie also has had hip issues, has he not? I'm sure he has.
Freddie's had a million issues. I think this year was blood clots, maybe, or last year. He's had basically he's had a lot of different issues, but the whole point is what they're saying is because you just can't take them out mid-game like you can a pitcher. Practice is where you start taking advantage of trying to preserve your hips.
Okay.
And so in the NHL or maybe juniors, college, pro, you have three goalies.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're a youth team and your team has two goalies or one goalie? Right? And this is where Matt Murray says that this is what he would do with his kid when he has a kid that plays goalie, is that for the first drills when they're just coming in youth, so the first 4 drills of a hockey practice are usually like tracking drills where they're supposed to come in and like shoot at your hands and warm you up.
Yeah.
In youth hockey, it's like come in from the hash marks, rip it as hard as I can at the goalie's head.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, just youth hockey, totally.
For the headshot drills. Yeah, just youth hockey. Right. That doesn't happen in professional hockey practices.
Never.
So for those drills, you basically don't want to go down most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stay up, and really what you're focusing on is tracking the puck and being good with your hands. Some guys and I know this used to upset you because you were big on this.
Are you about to bring up the statue?
Yeah. You called it
My
the statue,
favorite.
where guys would come in and shoot, and you would just stand there and like catch
Logan
it.
Nelson would call it the statue because he would get pissed every time he'd come down and I statued him. Like, stop being a statue.
Right, because he thinks you're going to go down like a game. So The way Matt Murray puts it is for the first few drills, and I agree with this, track the puck. There's no need to slam your hips because you're going to see 20 shots a minute at least. You don't need to do 20 butterflies. What's if you weigh 200 pounds and you do 20 butterflies, what's 400 times 20? Is that 8,000?
I think so.
You're putting 8,000 pounds of load on your hips per minute.
Don't make us do math on the spot while we're live.
If you do a 3-minute shooting, that's 24,000 pounds on your hips of volume. So anyways.
It's crazy. It's wild.
Anyways, for practice, I think Matt Murray says for those drills where you're seeing those pucks all the time, work on your tracking, work on reading the puck off the blade. And then once your team gets into the game situational stuff, that's when you can go down and play it like a game.
I can take it as...
and I think you save, over the course of time, you save a lot of volume on your hips.
And I agree. I think it's a great idea. I think people should do it. If you are in a situation, or if you're just like, I don't want to not go down, like I only get 2 practices a week, maybe even 1 practice a week, and I just want to feel it. In my opinion, a good hybrid to this is, and I think it'd be great for like reaction time, is picking the shots you go down for instead of just staying up the whole time. So
yeah, it's a good idea too to make sure you're reading it off the blade before you actually go down.
Because a bad habit that I feel like almost everyone has is just automatically dropping before the puck is even released. Like yesterday I was working with a kid, and I won't say his name, but he knows who he is. He listens to this podcast.
Good.
And we were working on catching the puck, putting it down, passing it back to me.
Yeah.
I was saucing it to him hard. He's an older kid, 16-year-old kid, and he twice. And the first time I yelled at him, and then he did it again, so I really yelled at him. He dropped down in the butterfly, and it sailed over his head. I'm like, watch the puck.
Yeah,
you don't need to go down.
Yeah, you got to watch the puck.
So in a practice, in a flow drill, if a guy's coming down and they're shooting where they're supposed to, like top of the circles to warm you up, if it's coming high and you can like comfortably just stay up, do that. If it's going low, then go down. And I think that'll help you actually focus on tracking the puck the way you're supposed to.
It definitely improves your patience. It improves everything because your tracking gets much better just doing that exercise.
Yeah.
So it works. It saves your hips and it improves your tracking and your reading and reacting. So that's like a double whammy good thing.
That's 2 easy solutions in the first 20 minutes of your practice we just gave you.
Right. So then it's like, well, what do we do with goalie sessions? I think goalie sessions, what we've been doing in our sessions lately is some of the drills the goalie doesn't go down. Mm-hmm. They move to the middle, get a hand shot, move somewhere else, come back, get another hand shot, no butterfly. When we do our warm-ups, like just stick saves, hand saves, we have the goalie down, so there's no slamming into your butterfly every time a shot's taken.
So you're just down the whole time.
Right. So there's 2 drills there where we're trying to save your hips. Obviously, you're going to have to do some skill development, but I think we just try to be smart about in our goalie sessions with goalies. You know, that's kind of the time to do your skill development. Once you get into practice, you don't do like RVH and other movements as much.
No,
you know?
Not as much net play. It's more out in front of you. A lot more tracking than just. Well, that's why goalie lessons are great because you get to work on the stuff around the net. But like you said,
right,
in
it's where all the
practice,
goals are scored.
Yeah, it's more so just flow drills where you're seeing shots from out in front of you.
Right, so you don't have to worry about, loading your hips all the time. Just playing game situational drills. So that's games. You just got to do what you got to do. If you're a coach and you have 2 goalies on your team, youth hockey, you got to split them.
100%.
If it's they both got to play. If it's pro hockey and there's a starter, I feel like they got to have less practice time, and the other guy has to practice a lot more.
Yeah,
to save his hips because he's playing playing games and going down a lot. But so everything that we've talked about so far are on ice solutions. I think I want to go back to what I said earlier. I kind of want to talk about, if it's okay, some off ice solutions for this, because I think a lot of what happens on the ice injury wise has a lot to do with what you're doing off the ice too.
Okay.
So yes, you're dropping down into an internally rotated hip, but I think if your hips, if you're working out regularly and becoming strong, and obviously when you're 12 to 16, you're probably not going to be strong. But as you get older, I think I am a firm believer that helps saves your hips, because the musculature, it's not like only your hip capsule is absorbing the impact, and that's where I want to ask about this. I think it's not just your hip capsule that's absorbing the impact. I also think your musculature is too. And the stronger your muscular the stronger your musculature is around your hips and your groins and core, like I said earlier, the better it can absorb that energy, and I think it takes stress off your hips.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I do agree with you, but I don't know.
And strength can mask a lot of injuries. Strength can mask a lot of things. A lot of people have torn shoulders, torn labrums in their shoulder, but they can play. It doesn't affect them because their shoulder musculature, their shoulder girdle is so strong.
Yeah,
I'm
thinking.
And that's of course done by training hard off the ice. That's strength training. Another thing, hip strengthening exercises like before you go on the ice. So like band work.
Yeah.
Those like hurdles, internal rotations, external rotations.
That would be creating mobility.
Mobility and strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, the internal and external would be mobility and strength.
Yeah.
It's like the windshield wipers. I think all that, doing that before you go on the ice as part of your warm up is huge in keeping your hips strong, safe, healthy. But in general, warming up before you're going on the ice is incredibly important to staying healthy throughout a season and just any time you're going on the ice. Anyways, that's something you should be doing anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put this hip thing and these butterflies just in a vacuum and say we're going to forget about everything else because it's all connected, I think, in my opinion.
No, it is. I think it's obvious. I mean, there's a lot of science about all this stuff, and we've heard it for years. And I'm sure everyone in this podcast will agree with you when you say that strength training and mobility is important for long-term health as an athlete. That's a no-brainer.
And warming up, obviously.
Now,
cooling down.
And cooling, all of it. Yeah. And the most important
entire thing.
And the most important part is being consistent with it. And what I see a lot of is, especially with young athletes, they prioritize it for like their games, but they don't do it before a practice or a lesson. And I think it's almost backwards. Like, I think in a private lesson and a practice, you're arguably going to get more shots and more movement than in a game. So you got to be consistent with it and do it all the time. Yeah. If you actually want to see results. Now, where I got stuck as you were talking is we're specifically talking about the impact of dropping down into your butterfly. I do think strength training is going to help with that. But again, us not being doctors, I don't know if like you hitting your kneecap on the ground, which is basically like hitting the bottom of your femur or close to it directly to the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know how all that works. Like, I don't know if stronger
me
muscles prevent the femur then going up. I don't know.
I do know that for your shoulder joint, proper musculature around your shoulder will keep you, even if you have a torn labrum, will help keep your shoulder in when it wants to dislocate and keep it from subluxing, which is like a minor dislocation, just by being strong.
Yes.
So I believe the same could be true for your hips.
Yeah, but it's different.
That's my belief.
Because you're not slamming it, right?
Right, but your shoulder, you still, like, if you land extended, you're slamming your shoulder.
Yeah, and the muscles are, that's weird. My brain's like, obviously with the shoulder, it's going to protect it if you have stronger muscles. Yeah. But for the hip, my brain's just like, I don't know.
It's a little bit different movement.
It just seems like it, and like, I probably keep making faces. Like, every time I think about the femur going into the hip joint, it irks me because of
it's
pain
uncomfortable
that
to think about.
Encountered. Like, it's a brutal feeling.
It's uncomfortable to think about it happening to your body, though, just overall.
Yeah.
So I think with a mix of on-ice tactics, being smart, and I think really great off-ice tactics, making sure, you're being smart on the ice, but then making sure you're taking care of your training, strength training, building up your hips, building up your overall body strength, core strength, hydration for sure, and warming up in your routine before and after practice, I think are all a big part in helping you reduce these injuries and protecting your hips and your body.
Yeah.
There's one more point I want to make before I forget about it, or one question that I think we should answer, because this popped into my head as a question I would have. And it's like, where's the line from I need to, and we talked a little bit about this last week, where is the line then from I need to work on this skill, I need to do a lot of reps of this skill to get better at it, versus I'm going to tear my body apart trying to do 1,000 butterfly reps?
Well, I guess I would ask, what skill are you working on where you need to do 1,000 butterfly reps?
The butterfly.
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I mean? Or like, do I need to do 1,000 RVHs?
Hmm.
And you probably do. But
Over
it's
time,
like,
though.
over time. But it's like, and then once you kind of start getting good at it, you don't need to necessarily work on slamming your butterfly all the time.
You train to run a marathon.
Right.
You know, so you to run a marathon, you're not just gonna be like, okay, it's day 1 of training, I'm gonna go run a marathon.
Right. So you think the answer is you work on the skill, but you're not overloading it all the time.
Work on the skill
Yeah.
while you're developing your nutrition, hydration habits, and your off-ice strength and mobility at the same time.
So you can
slowly develop into a better athlete that's more capable of doing these things more and more.
Yeah. So be smart with it. Work on your skills. If it's like a T-push, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's could be compromising to your joints, be smart about it. If you're like, let's say you're like learning to play goalie and you're still trying to figure out how to butterfly, do a few butterflies slowly and work on getting your pads rotated and your knees going the right way. But you don't have to slam over and over again. You can get the feel of it, and then when you go in the net, you know, get a good feel of it, and then when you go in the net, you can do it.
You can work on other things too.
Well, there's a lot. That's
slamming.
the thing.
There's a million things. If you're that early in the stage where you're learning how to butterfly, there's a lot of other things you can work on. One other thing that's relevant to touch on here is, and again, I'm thinking about young me, where I wasn't a best listener.
Right.
Young kids have an advantage over someone who is, say, 30 years old and likes hockey and wants to be a beer league goalie in regards to doing a butterfly or RVH or just mobility in general. So if you're a young kid, don't think, oh, I can do this, no problem. I have no pain. I don't need to do any of the stuff they're talking about. And if you're an old guy and you're like, man, I can't do the butterfly. Why can't I do this? Take your time. Be patient with it. You're 30 years old. You've never asked your body to do an internal rotation while dropping onto your knees before.
Some people are 50 when they start.
Right. We've worked with 63-year-old goalies before. We've seen it all.
Yeah.
So my point is, no matter what side of the coin you're on in that scenario, this is important for everyone, that you got to ease into it. You can't just rush right into this dang thing. I think part of my hip surgery issues were because I did not do the off ice stuff that you're talking about. You know, like when from the time I was maybe Matt Murray, when he was saying 12 to 16 years old is when. Yeah. And I think that age is, I mean, across the board, relative.
Not a lot of people warm up at that age anyways. It's not about that. It's about having fun.
Right. And at the same time, but at the same time, yes, it's about having fun, but it's also during that time period, your body's changing. Like, you're growing. Like, you got to make sure you're taking care of your body. Your body's always vulnerable during growth periods. Oh, 100%. So I think that's a big issue during that age period. And
we'll tell some of our goalies, a couple of our goalies, they have some hip pain already, and they're not very old. We always tell them during our lessons, hey, if this is bothering your hip, we're going to get out of it, because I want you to be good down the road. It's not about doing 5 million RVHs where we're going to see if we can dislocate your hips internally. That's how far they're trying to turn in to get to the post or something.
Yeah.
And I want to make one more point, because I know it's a little bit of an old school thing, but I know that I used to have to do it when I was a kid. If you're trying to punish your goalie, do not have them do up downs.
No, just keep
What does that accomplish? Keep them down and have them push all over the place, or have them move. Yeah. Up downs.
Or keep them up.
Up downs in one stationary position is just while you're tired, slamming your hip. So because you're tired, you're not going to flex your muscles like you should when your knees do slam into the ground. So there's going to be no support for your hips. It's like even worse.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I wanted to get that out before. So if you're upset with yourself, don't have yourself do up downs either, because it's counterproductive. I just do like a million pushes while you're already down, or do like a lot of T pushes or something.
I have 2 more things.
All right.
They're kind of unrelated.
That's all right.
This is we're very new, or this hip topic, and like I guess down count, drop rate, whatever you want to call it, is obviously very new. There's an NHL article out. Obviously, I think it said something like 80% of NHL teams are tracking this now.
Yep.
But that's not even 100% of the NHL teams yet. So it's a new thing.
Science.
There's going to be pushback. You're going to have coaches that are yelling at you saying, "Why aren't you going down?" All these different things.
Yeah.
Parents, I'm just saying, it's expect there to be some pushback if you decide to utilize this.
Yeah, and be smart. If you're in a tryout situation, you got to stop every puck. You got to stop every puck. It is what it is.
This is not something you do during trials.
Yeah, or like your first 2 weeks when you're trying to make a team out of training camp.
Right. This is something that you do when you're on the ice with your goalie coach, or it's like January and you've already built the trust of your teammates and everything.
Yeah, team practice after a while.
Secondly, another something that we didn't touch on yet, but that we talked about we made an entire podcast out of it last week, is a great time to preserve hip health is the off season.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. And strengthen your hips during this whole time, so that they don't have to deal with them getting worn down right now.
Build up strength during the off season. Build up hip strength specifically.
Yep.
During the off season, and don't do any butterflies because you're not on the ice for 2 months.
Right.
Bingo.
You can do ball drills to help track.
Did Matt Murray
to
not
work
talk
on
about
tracking?
Or I guess he didn't talk about specifically summer. He just said as a kid he was on the ice sometimes twice a day.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it was probably twice
time
in the
summer,
summer. Yeah.
yeah.
Because I mean that's what I did.
And this goes back to Corey Schneider. Time off the ice is as important as time on the ice.
Yep. So I just thought that's another. So now you have like 3 on ice tools, a bunch of different situational ones, and off ice tools to help your hips long term.
Yeah. The goal with this was to present this issue. We're kind of talking through it with everybody, but also provide some solutions. Because it's like, well, now that we have an issue, if we don't know what to do about it, then what's the point, right? Like,
yeah.
You got to be able to do something about it. So
yeah, well, that's good, man. I think we covered quite a bit.
That's all I got for today.
Yeah. See you next week.
Yeah. We'll see you. We should see you next week.
Week 3 in our return
right
to the podcast.
Right.
World.
I don't even call it a return. I feel like we never left.
Up here we never left.
Right.
But physically we kind of
right.
took some time off.
Yeah. That's all right. So, well, thank you everybody for listening. I really hope this helps. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
If you have any questions about anything that we talked about, or if you have any ideas for us or something that you want us to discuss on the podcast, just let us know.